welcome back, and thank you for your patience. Welcome to the Education and Pupil Services Committee in-person and virtual meeting for August 23rd. The meeting of the Education and Pupil Services Committee will please come to order. The district posted this evening's agenda to board docs at least 24 hours prior to the commencement of this meeting. Is there a motion to approve that previously posted agenda?
Second.
Thank you. Are there any amendments to offer?
There's not.
Thank you. The agenda has been moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, please signify by saying I oppose and state your name for the record. Those abstaining, please signify by saying I abstain and state your name for the record. The motion carried. I will now turn over the Education and Pupil Services Committee agenda to Co-Chair Director Neal.
Thank you, President Brown. Ms. Kelly or Mr. Marshallak, could you please begin with an overview of your agenda items for the evening, and then you can roll right into agenda item number 1.
Okay, thank you very much. So tonight we have 2 agenda items. The first one is the Upper Darby High School schedule audit update. Ms. Kelly Simone, our new Director of Secondary Education, is going to provide an update on the recent audit of our high school schedule. Again, informational only. We used some of the ARP ESSER funds to secure a consultant to help us review our high school audit and take a look at where we are and where we need to be, if anything. Second agenda item is policies. So board action is required for this, and we have 4 policies to review tonight that were at a first reading at our last business meeting. So agenda item number 1, I'll turn it to Ms. Simone.
Thank you, Mr. Marshallak, and good evening, President Brown, school board directors, Dr. McGarry, administration, and school community. As you are aware, our superintendent, Dr. McGarry, and at the time, Director of Secondary Education, Dr. Manfrey, requested an audit to be conducted for the Upper Darby High School schedule to determine the number of full-time equivalents or full teaching staff needed in each department as compared to the current number for the 2021-2022 school year. As Mr. Marshallak said, the district utilized American Rescue Plan ARP and elementary and secondary school emergency relief ESSER funds to secure a consultant to perform the audit with representatives from the district. Tonight, we will discuss the rationale of the audit, the process by which we reviewed schedule options as part of the report summary, and the recommendations and next steps. Again, the purpose of the audit was to ensure that the high school schedule and scheduling process provides the best opportunity for efficient use of full-time equivalents or FTEs, again, full-time teachers, and to examine all scheduling options, including the current schedule, to provide optimal academic opportunities for all students. We secured a consultant, Mr. Elliot Marenblum, and worked closely with Mr. Marenblum for several months. Mr. Marenblum has been in education for over 35 years and is a published author. He is a co-author of numerous books about the scheduling process. We are very grateful for Mr. Marenblum and his expertise and insight into the staffing and scheduling process at the high school level. At the onset of this work, we created a committee consisting of various members at distinct levels. There was a tiered committee approach as we held core meetings with limited district and building personnel, but also formed an expansion group consisting of teachers and pupil service personnel. Between the 2 groups, we met 15 times to review the efficiency of the current schedule, including courses offered, class size, and staff allocation. We used the department summary strategy to determine the efficient use of FTEs, again, full-time teaching staff. We reviewed multiple schedule options and outlined the pros and cons of each schedule. I want to thank all of the participants that provided insight and valuable feedback during this process. I do want to take a moment and acknowledge one individual in particular, Mr. James Finch, our assistant principal at the high school, who is responsible for the scheduling process. As indicated in the report, Mr. Finch should be commended for his work on the high school schedule and the effectiveness with which he currently schedules the building and allocates FTE. If Mr. Marenblum were with us this evening, I know he would join me in this commendation. Scheduling the high school is complex, but scheduling a high school our size with a block model is very comprehensive. Again, Mr. Finch should be commended for his hard work and dedication, especially throughout this entire process. Upper Darby High School currently operates on a semester 1, semester 2 block schedule. As you can see, the team reviewed other schedule options used at the high school level. We felt an important factor to consider in examining potential schedules is the impact on the late start. What we found to be true in reviewing the various scheduling options is that if we explored changing the current schedule, there would be an impact on staffing, contractual issues, instructional minutes, calendar implications, and student-teacher instructional workload. If the board wishes for us to continue exploration, we can certainly do so. However, the current schedule's efficiency is a viable option at this time. Mr. Marenblum provided recommendations in his final report that the team agrees should be adopted and implemented as next steps. Moving forward, building administrators should utilize the department summary process annually to determine the effective use and equitable distribution of available FTEs, which is very similar to what Mr. Finch currently does right now. We should continue to plan for the curriculum aspect of career pathways and are fortunate that we have already developed a plan for college and career pathways, and as suggested, start in the middle school years. We are on track with the recommended plan, starting as early as 7th grade with our school counseling department and student sessions. So in summary, the current high school schedule is well designed and efficient for both staff and students. Our schedule meets the recommendation of the Sleep Deprivation and Adolescence Report of the later start times for secondary students. The high school administration will continue to review the schedule based on graduation and course credit requirements and staffing availability. And again, I do want to point out Mr. James Finch and an excellent job scheduling our high school, and he really should be commended again for this hard work and leadership. And that concludes the audit update, and I'll turn it back over to Mr. Marshallak.
I know we spent a lot of time with the scheduling committee regarding the high school's schedule, and I appreciate the effort that went into it. And I think because of the uniqueness that our high school schedule, that we find ourselves in with the high school, that I think annually we need to review it, and we are doing that, and this is definitely part of the process. So I think like moving forward, like next year, next summer, that we continue looking to see, is there any amendments that we need to do to the schedule, or should we implement a new schedule because something's not working? But it looks like it's been well designed, well thought out, and it's been efficient for the students. So I appreciate this information. So I just wanted to say thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? Neil, Director Desnoyers?
I had one small question. I have one small question, which is if I read the information in the report correctly, out of the different schedule options that were explored, there was only one option that we are currently not using that doesn't have the negative impact or the con of not being possible with the credit cap policy that the board implemented. And if I'm correct, that's the 8-period schedule. Does that make sense?
So with all the schedules reviewed, depending on what schedule you looked at, there would be an implication of instructional minutes for one schedule. There is a schedule, as you're referring to, that would meet our credit cap that we have instituted, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
Yes. But there would be implications in other areas that we would have to consider. So yes, it would meet the credit cap, but then it would impact other areas in terms of staffing, workload, et cetera.
Okay. No, that's, there are, yes.
Okay. But
All
yes,
the different options have various pros and cons.
But there is an option that does meet our required credit cap.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it seems to me the 8-period option has I believe the periods are 31 minutes, which seems to me would involve a lot of time between classes
That's why
with
we
a
have a
lot
really
of
good
movement
schedule right
needed for very short classes, yes?
Yes, so we looked
Okay.
at all of that. There's
Okay.
definitely implications for instructional minutes. There's definitely implications for extended the day to meet the requirements as in the report, depending on the schedule proposed. But
Okay.
yes,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thanks. I just wanted to jump onto what Mr. Desnoyers was saying. The other thing with that is, as I recall from the scheduling committee that met last year, that included a lot of student input. The students really preferred the semester one, the block scheduling to the traditional period scheduling. So that's another sort of, I think one thing that hasn't come up so much tonight is the student involvement. And the students really were very involved in the conversation last year, and they very much preferred the current block situation to the period schedule. So I think that's relevant also.
Yes, their input is they prefer to have to worry about less coursework. So the student workload was a major factor then and now in our review.
Yeah, to that comment, I think it's important. I think Mr. Desnoyers, your question is a good one. And Ms. Mitchell, the real key parts, as you know, Ms. Mitchell, and the board knows, is important for the public. Contractually, there is a start of the day and an end of the day in the teacher contract. And so when that comes into play, you're bound by certain parameters. And we have a new 5-year teacher contract. And so what the audit also did was said, okay, these are schedules you could consider exploring, but you have probably the most efficient, creative schedule to meet the current contract expectations. To Mr. Desnoyers' point, an 8-period schedule has its pros and would certainly get us to that more streamlined 4-year, keeping students in school 4 years with a credit cap. The only concern there is a lunchtime piece. Where does that fit in, and how do the students get to lunch? And does that increase does that cause extra staffing in an environment today where staffing is another issue? So what Ms. Simone, Dr. Manfrey, Mr. Marshallak, Ms. Kelly have put together is really what came out of this is our schedule that we have is well thought out, and James Finch, who we should probably stop plugging away as being so great, even though he is, because someone's going to steal him, is scheduling a school district at the high school. Just keep that in mind. He is scheduling an entire school district multiple times in 1 year. There's 4,000 students at the high school. It's a block schedule. He does it fall and spring, second semester. And he's done it, now fact check with an auditor that it's been pretty well done, considering making an exceptional use. If you do read the report, if James didn't do it the way that he did it, and in some ways the report says we're still short teachers at the high school. So James' effective use of the scheduling is creatively making the best use of our teachers and not having us add even more teachers, which is a compliment to James and the team here at the high school. So that part is good, but I do want to comment on the question. There were scheduling ideas that were out there, but they conflict with current time constraints and staffing constraints. And as a result, is it worth us going out there, looking at those in the current environment of staffing reality and contract limitations?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. McGarry. I just want to make sure it's clear to the public that I do not believe the board is looking to change the schedule at the high school. Once again, we did that last year. This was simply an audit from an outside set of eyes to take a look of what's going on at the high school to make sure that we are working as efficiently as possible. And so when they are discussing these different schedules, that person's bringing up that, even though we know we have already discussed those and the positives and the negatives to that. Ms. Simone, thank you for your presentation.
It's policies now, so Mr.
Yeah, it's just,
Desnoyers-
policies, I'm sorry.
So there are 4 policies under consideration at this meeting. They are policies 103 and 104, discrimination, Title IX, sexual harassment affecting students and staff respectively. Policy 202, eligibility of non-resident students. And Policy 246, school wellness. As a reminder, these changes must undergo a second reading at a future board meeting prior to taking effect. This evening, I will provide brief descriptions of the updates to these policies. More complete information about the updates to these policies can be found in the Education and Pupil Services Summary of Policy Changes document, which is posted to Board Docs. The updates are as follows. For policies 103 and 104, a minor update is being made. The contact information for the district's compliance officer / Title IX coordinator is being updated at the request of administration. Policy 202, the policy is being updated to address the enrollments of students whose families move out of the district during the school year. This update was requested by administration. And policy 246, the policy is being updated to better describe the ways in which the district contributes to students' wellness. This update was also requested by administration. And this completes my discussion.
Thank you, Director Desnoyers. Did any board members have any questions or comments? All right, seeing no other questions or comments for agenda item number 2, we move on to public comment. At this time, are there any public comments on agenda item number 1, the high school schedule audit update, or agenda item number 2, the policy updates?
There are no public comments at this time.
Thank you. That brings us back to item 7. Ms. Simone or Mr. Marshallek, would you please review the agenda items presented this evening?
Okay, so tonight we had two agenda items. The first one's informational only, the Upper Darby High School schedule audit update that Ms. Simone provided. And the second is board action, the policy that Mr. Desnoyers also provided to the board tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Marshallek. Being that item number 1, the high school schedule audit was informational, there's nothing for the board to consider in that. Agenda item number 2, does the board wish to move these policies forward?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So it looks like we're going to move that forward, and that concludes the end of the committee. President Brown.
Okay. A motion is in order for the adjournment of the Education and Pupil Services Committee meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Meeting adjourned. Have a good night, everyone.